welcome to episode 6 of the Powerhouse podcast, where we bring to you the powerhouses in the mitochondrial disease world. I'm your host, Brian Harmon, President and CEO of the United Mitochondrial Disease Foundation, and I'm joined today by a special co-host, UMDF Special Event Manager, Tanya Hanscom. Tanya, it's a beautiful day here today. I'm fully caffeinated. I've had a really great week of strategy meetings. I just got off the phone with a couple of our Mito warriors, some of our patient families. I'm really energized. I'm ready to kick down some doors. I hope you're feeling the same right now.
Yes, definitely. So I'm so excited to be with you today. Thank you for having me and inviting me to join you. I had a great week. I met some new families this week virtually, which was amazing. My whole team were set up and ready to go with our fall Energy for Life walk season. And it's just, it's been a great, crazy year, and we're ready to see how right? The end of 2021 goes. So
it's been crazy enough. I gave Dr. Phil the month off for the podcast today, but most importantly, we brought Tanya on today because we're going to be talking about something so important, community fundraising today. This is a special edition of the podcast. We're going to talk to some of the real powerhouses in the online, social media, YouTube communities. And Tanya, this has really been a rapidly growing area for our organization when I think about some of the unique ways people have been fundraising over the past several years.
It absolutely is, yes. And one of the ways is Facebook fundraising. So Facebook fundraising exploded in the last few years for UMDF. It's been an amazing way for families and individuals to fundraise right on their Facebook page. And the best thing about it, in my opinion, is that there's zero fees. So Facebook covers all of the fees. And so 100% of your donations come straight to the foundation.
Boy, and during a year where our community, who have been unrelenting in their support, had to find new and creative ways to fundraise. We couldn't have golf events. You couldn't have lemonade stands, right? We had to turn to online and use the power of these platforms to raise money. And boy, Facebook continues to be a place that continues to perform for our organization. And I think about some of the other creativity, particularly around our friends who are creating these do-it-yourself fundraising pages. I know you've come across some really interesting ways that people have fundraised.
Yeah, so just like HGTV, we offer DIY fundraising. So it's a way for you to create your own fundraising event and do it online. So you can collect donations online. You can invite your family and friends to support you online and create their own fundraisers as well. We've had so many people take advantage of the DIY fundraising platform. And in fact, one of our content creators who's joining us today actually did take advantage and had his fundraiser right on our DIY fundraising page.
Well, I'm looking forward to here real soon bringing on our guests to talk more about how they put this all to work. I don't want to, undersell just some of the classic fundraising we've had over this past spring as well, too. We had a really great spring Energy for Life season with our events in Pittsburgh, St. Louis, San Francisco. Of course, proud of the support of our friends at Zogenix who have helped underwrite these events by their sponsorship. But we're not done. There's a little break right here, Tanya, but not much, right? We're getting ready for the fall. So what's going on in the Energy for Life world?
That's right. Yes, we have 16 Energy for Life walkathons that are coming up this fall. We've coined 2021 Walk Your Way in 2021 with our Energy for Life walks. So most of our events this fall will again be virtual with some sort of hybrid opportunity for teams to gather amongst themselves or with other teams that they've just connected with over the years. We thought that was a really important opportunity for them to be able to get together if they were comfortable in doing so. Right. Of course, we still have that virtual option, and I think we'll continue to have that for many years to come, just to give families that ability to participate, even if they can't come to the actual event. We also have coming up on October 2nd is our national virtual walk and 5K. So that is an amazing opportunity that came out of COVID because we created this virtual event for anyone, anywhere in the world can participate, regardless if you have an event in your hometown or not.
Well, EFL fall season is going to be here before we know it. I walked my way this spring by getting some key lime pie ice cream, which was like 2.5 miles from my house. So I need to figure out what my fall is going to be. Maybe a pumpkin spice latte. I'm not sure yet, but got those steps in, enjoyed my ice cream. And again, finding creative ways to not just raise money for the organization, but continue to build awareness. That's what we're going to talk about today with our guests as well, too. And lastly, too, summertime for us is the time when the fireflies come out. And many folks have supported our organization through our Hope Flies program, where we have the firefly as the symbol of that program, of continue to bring a light to mitochondrial disease. And it has become a really important way that folks have decided to support us by making a monthly gift, Tanya.
That's right. Yes. So with our monthly giving, it's so easy to do. It's almost a set it and forget it type of way to make your donation. So you can create that donation once, and every month or every quarter or once a year, the donations automatically come to the foundation and you don't have to do anything. So it's just an easy way to make that donation and make your support count.
Well, Tanya, you and I could probably talk fundraising for an entire day and have a podcast about that. And it'd probably be pretty boring if it was just you and I. I think what makes it really exciting is when we have folks out there in the field in their own communities doing this good work. And that's what today is all about on this special edition of the Powerhouse. We're excited to welcome in some real powerhouses of fundraising and awareness, and using their individual platforms to generate more awareness surrounding mitochondrial disease. So with us today is Mr. Tom Grossi, Grace Robinson, and Sam Washington. Welcome all to the Powerhouse. We're glad you're here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to be
Thank
here.
you so much for having me.
Well, we're excited to dive in a little bit about some of your own projects, and just listen, I want to just get an education more than anything else. As an organization that has to find new and unique ways to connect with people, I want to hear from all of you of kind of what made your campaigns, your events special. And Tom, I'm going to kick off with you just to get a conversation going. Let me say this first. I'm usually the guy that people are jealous of because of my fancy microphone and my headset. My gosh, this one lonely plant back here. But Tom, you're all good with the green today.
Yeah. We just for this show though. Like, this was a really expensive endeavor just to get all of this together. Like, I had to make the fans turn green. Like, that took hours of work. But we love when our guests live the brand of UMDF, as our followers sure well know. We're all green, right? So Tom, as I was alluding to, you were in our universe 6 months ago, and you were able to connect with our staff. And walk us back a little bit to your journey of meeting UMDF. Yeah. So on the channel, we do a ton of like charitable endeavors that honestly it ranges from like 6 a year to sometimes it's monthly, just because. And last year, kind of while things were kind of going crazy in the world, I kind of had an idea to just like try and fundraise for like kind of a big organization. And some people in my life that I really cared about, were afflicted with mitochondrial diseases. And so that kind of set me out on the path to try and find an organization that not only was just like about awareness, but also was going into research and actually like giving back to families and like helping people on the ground. And that's what led me to your doorstep. Well, we're so glad you're here today. And well, you mentioned the connection of meeting real patient families who are on this mitochondrial disease journey. And with us today, as well as Grace, is one of our Mito warriors, and her dear friend Sam. And I wanted to ask you two ladies to kind of kick off an introduction for yourselves, just about how the two of you connected. How do you know each other?
Well, I've actually known Sam for, I feel like, the majority of my life. She's just kind of always been around, but we've been friends for a while. And I've been sick for the majority of my life. And in 2015, I was diagnosed with mitochondrial disease after years of not knowing what was going on. And Sam's kind of been here throughout all of that.
Sam, tell us a little bit about your relationship with Grace.
Absolutely. Grace talks about being sick. I remember the days when Grace only ate marshmallows because that's where she was in her illness. But it's just, we have always been connected. And also, I've been making videos on the internet since I'm 12. It's a wonderful generation to grow up of and be a part of, this digital first generation. So especially when it came to creating awareness, it was always like, okay, Grace, like, what can we do in terms of video? Like, this is what I know. This is what I know how to do. Like, let's work together to do it. But funnily enough, not only are Gracie and I longtime besties, her cousin is also my boyfriend. So now we get to spend every holiday together.
Hey, there you go.
Just being great friends.
Well, I like this, and I probably should have started there thinking about kind of what your worlds looked like before you got involved with UMDF, and it's great, Sam, that you mentioned like this is kind of what I knew and how I can kind of do good with this. And I want to come back to that. And Tom, I think it probably would bear some just building some clarity around when we look at your setup there. Clearly, you're a fan of the Green Bay Packers.
I'm a really big Texans fan. Like just show you can, yeah. I don't really watch a lot of football, honestly. Like it's just like in passing if it's on, I guess.
Tell us a little bit about your show.
Yeah. So back in 2015, I started a podcast called Packcast, which was really, really hard to figure out a name. I took the word Packers and the word podcast, and that was it. And that was the entirety of it. But I started off, and it was all audio and everything. And then in 2017, kind of like moved to YouTube a little bit and have kind of just grown from there. Been on Sunday Night Football a few times, ESPN, and it's kind of just exploded to now at the point like we're over 200,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And it's honestly a fantastic community. And crazily enough, it's not just Packers fans. Like we kind of attracted everybody from the NFL, even like Bears and Lions and Vikings fans who begrudgingly like came over and were like, let's like roast this guy. And then they stayed. So I kind of
nice.
the deal.
I actually saw in the one show, sorry, Brian, I saw in the one show where there were some Steeler fans in the crowd, which is what I am. So I was a little excited to see that. So
that's, you know what? It's so great that you bring that up because as a diehard Steelers fan from Super Bowl 45, it's always memorialized right there behind me. So I'm so glad, but I'm looking forward to week 4 this season. It'll be a good time.
Well, I'll just purge right now if we're getting it all out. I'm an Ohio guy and I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. And while things are looking up,
hey, you're okay now. Like,
we're okay now, but other things to attend to. So Tom, you were mentioning this, and I think this is a question for everyone here. When we think about, we have folks who they call us, they want to start fundraising pages, they have some ideas, very creative ideas, but so much of the challenge is creating that audience. And Tom, I want to go a little bit deeper with when you talk about getting to, I think you said 200,000 subscribers on there. If you're willing to share some of your secrets, like what does that look like? How do you grow audiences?
It's a great question. Yeah, you can pick up my book that I've written for. I haven't written a book. I have not done that.
Tom's a comedian too. P.S. If you haven't picked it up yet,
that is accurate. Well, at least my mom calls me it. So, in terms of like building an audience, I mean, the thing was, if we're going like logistically, like it's consistency. Like I've done a video Monday through Friday since August of 2019. So that's been like throughout the off season when they're the dark ages where there's nothing going on in like the football realm. We're in July, like there's not much to talk about, but we're still talking. So it's just the consistency. And then honestly, the biggest thing for me has just fostering that idea of community in that like the people who come back, like I live stream a lot, for example, and you see the same people, come in and day out, and it's actually interacting with them. And kind of getting to know them and getting to know their stories and things like that. And that's how I actually got involved with your organization, because you had members of the fan base who, were dealing with this. And so this is kind of what highlighted it. But in terms of kind of like maintaining that audience, I think it's just trying to be as genuine as possible. I'm just going to speak for myself. I mean, so we meaning myself, like I do all of this on my own, and like I don't take any sponsors because like I don't want to shill out products I don't use. Like that's just a me thing. So like it is like a community funded organization. Like I put on a free show, and if people want to donate, cool. Like if they don't, cool. Like it works out either way. So when we are raising money for charity, whether it's incentives of like I'm offering a signed football jersey or something like that, it's gotten to the point where like I can kind of just use this platform for good, which I do as much as humanly possible, and kind of like point, and we're able to fundraise for a great organization.
Well, you are living the brand. I think the Packers are still the organization where the community owns the team too,
yes,
right?
Look
at that. You truly are. Sam, I want to go to you on this. So we've talked, you and I have talked before about just the power of just really strong content, compelling stories. And, this is your life, is developing out really strong videos. And maybe you can share with our listeners a little bit of how that turned into the project for Awesome.
Yeah. So I Project for Awesome is, just to give background for people who don't know, is a community fundraiser run by Nerdfighteria, which is the Vlog Brothers community of internet nerds who the tagline is, we want to decrease world suck. So I have always, like I mentioned, really been into video creation, and now I do it professionally, which is great, and really trying to create a story that connects with people. But that aspect of community and looking to the communities that you're a part of, whether that is like in the flesh or virtually, is just such a powerful thing to tap into. So I think for the past 2 Project for Awesomes, I've created videos to talk about mitochondrial disease. And one of the things that I feel like I always say in the video is, like, even if you don't vote for us to win, the top charities, I would just really appreciate if you would take the time to learn about this. Just like that little, like those nuggets of knowledge that, I can share in that under 4-minute video, that means that more people are becoming aware of mitochondrial disease. So when they hear it, that white car effect, you don't see a white car until you have one. When they hear somebody say, like, oh, my friend has mitochondrial, or I met somebody with mitochondrial disease, or whatever, the light comes on and they're like, okay,
Yes.
maybe this is something I should learn more about.
Everyone does have a Honda Pilot, though. I just want to get that out there. So Grace, as you and Sam are kind of working on some of these projects together, and I guess, for lack of a better way of asking, like, how does it feel to be the inspiration for these kind of projects? And it's not just Sam. I look at someone like, again, Tom, who had a personal connection to the disease, but also is inspired by, got inspired by the organization as a whole and patients like you. How does that feel to be kind of the center of inspiration here?
It's a little odd, but also, because I don't necessarily think of myself as an inspiring person. So when people say, like, you're the inspiration to this fundraising or something, it's kind of an odd feeling, but I'm really happy to be able to bring awareness to the disease and help with fundraising. And it's honestly just an honor to be able to use my story to shine light on what mitochondrial disease is.
And you've done that in a couple different ways for the UMDF. I know you've served in some roles as a UMDF ambassador, which is our nationwide network of volunteers. Tanya and I were talking earlier about our Energy for Life Walk, our signature fundraising event. You've been a part of that. Talk to me a little bit about just some of the ways that you've connected with UMDF over the years. I'm
a support ambassador, and I am one of the facilitators of the Northeastern PA support group. And that's been going since, I think, 2016 now. So we have a really great group. And every year I'm captain of our Team Mutant for the Delaware Valley Energy for Life Walk. And it's just anyone in our area, I try to rope them in. The first year, it was just me, my mom, and one friend. And now we have all these different families of, like, people who have mito, or just, friends of family and stuff. And we have a really great team now, and it's all about community.
Well, let's talk about hooks and roping people in. Tanya, I think back to when Tom launched the Jersey ref. Yeah. And it was so I want to paint this picture a little bit. Maybe this is testing the CEO's memory. A special online raffle with his jersey to culminate with the NFL draft. And I can remember, I think I wrote a note to Tom about this. Every morning I get up. One of the joys of my job is we get a daily gift report, it's called. It's a historical tracking of the gifts that came in the previous day. And all of a sudden, I knew Tanya had told me about this event. Yeah, this is a really great guy. He's doing this event for us. We're going to raise some money. And I'll be honest with you, we're not short on great ideas in the community. And I'll be even more honest, it's rare that they hit the way that your guys' hit. And that's why I'm so curious about how it works so well. And we would look at that report, and I see all these gifts rolling in. That was 0 to 60 for us. So Tom, again, I'm going to ask you to divulge some of your secrets.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me about building momentum, having hooks. And I think a really important piece of this as a career fundraiser, not doing too much. I think there's a risk that you're asking too many times, too often. There's a cadence that we need to find with this, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'm laughing to myself because like your first introduction to me was like in a flower crown and talking. Like,
I wasn't going to bring it up, but we have to. So talk to us about wildflower too.
Like that's phenomenal. Yeah. So the way that I've approached fundraising before, so like I'm going to give you an example because I've done fundraising before. Like, so when I ran the New York City Marathon in 2018, I did a fundraiser and he was raising it for actually Michael J. Fox's organization, and because that's like the one I chose to run for. And like at that point, it was 2018 too. Like I didn't have anywhere, I don't even think I had 10,000 subscribers. Like it wasn't anywhere near what we did, but we raised some money and that was great. And then over the years, I think it's a mix of there is a want to do good. And then there's also like this incentive that's there as well. And then it also kind of comes into like a competition. So like, let me kind of explain. So one of the first big fundraisers that I did, and this is like, if we're talking nerdy and we're going like D&D, like this is like chaotic, like good here. Basically, the Minnesota Vikings, who the Green Bay Packers do not get along with, there was a Minnesota newspaper that like was listing, and this was in 2020, like the best moments of like Minnesota sports over the decade, right? And one of the things was breaking Aaron Rodgers' collarbone. And like Packers fans were like livid, and they were like, how could they do this? Blah, 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 blah. So instead of like just like feeding into the outrage and just being so upset, I decided to take a different route, and I found a Minnesota-based charity called Can Do Canines, which gave service dogs to whether it was children who with cancer or people with disabilities or people who are homebound. And so we raised $3,000 to name a puppy Lambo. Because it's a Minnesota-based charity. And so now there is a dog there that is named after the Packers stadium. And so like that, like people were all about that because they were like, yes, because like this is just fantastic to do.
That's what my my YouTube addicted 11-year-old would call a sick burn.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, I know how confused you probably were, but like the Minnesota charity, they were like, wait, who are you again? Like, I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm a huge Packers guy. And they were very, very confused, but they were happy about it. So, but in terms of what we did for you guys, and I honestly didn't think the incentive was like incredible enough because basically I did like a series over last season, and there was one character named Wildflower, and he got very, very popular to the point where posters were made. And I raffled off a signed jersey. It's the only jersey that's actually in the series. And I raffled that off and I used it as an incentive. I was like, all right, we'll raise, I think what we set for you guys, like $5,000, you know, like to raise for you. And we hit that in a day. Right. Like I put out a video dressed up as him, like put out like a message and was like, hey, you want to win this? Like just like that. And within a day, we were up to $5,000. And to go to your point about like, you know, constantly harping on it and bringing it up, you know, the link was always there in the description. But what I did was we wound up doing like a big stream that got close to the deadline because like there was a lull, obviously, after like the first couple of days. And at that point, I think we raised an additional like $6,000 in a night because we just did one big stream and I just streamed for 5 hours raising money. And instead of asking for donations for me, I don't ask anyway for donations for me, but instead I was like prompting people to like, here, no, use this link. You can win this jersey. And I raffled off something else as well.
Right. Still bringing great quality content, right? The point is we don't have to be asking every second. It's wrapping around great content with asking. And Sam, again, I know we've talked about this a little bit. I know you have your own YouTube channel. And talk to us a little bit about your work, the life of insanity.
Oh, I do not have 200,000 subscribers on there.
I wrote down a note to our producers behind the scenes right now who tracks our subscribers for YouTube. When Tom said, yeah, we only had 10,000. We'll take it. But Sam, talk to me about your work on YouTube.
Yeah. So very similarly, like there is just a lot of value in creating content that people connect with and like look forward to, right? And it doesn't have to be so like in your face, like this is why you need to donate, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I even think about like the creative ways people have gotten donations. This is very divergent from your question, but as you're like talking about like, oh, give us your secrets, I'm thinking about like, I'm in a book club where part of the proceeds from the book club actually go to fight maternal mortality in Sierra Leone. And it's just part of my book club. Like, it's doing great work, but also like I get a book every month and I get to like talk in these things. And it's just so fascinating how YouTube has done, has gotten me in a book club that is now fighting that and has a flower crown character raising money by raffling off a t-shirt. Like this is great. This is great stuff. But I really do think that, my messaging has always been to be as genuine as possible on the channel and be as open as possible while also still delivering content that is good.
Right. Well, yeah. I'm glad you honed in on the part of the actual messaging itself. And it comes back to something Grace was talking about earlier of, her role in all of this is the ability to share her story, right? To put a real face behind this. Because again, if you're unfamiliar with a relatively rare disease like mitochondrial disease, as much as we have that everyone has a Honda Pilot moment, we do find ourselves in that mito what? And you need to kind of explain it. I mean, I got a C in biology in high school, so I still need that education as well too. But Grace, I want to just talk to you a little bit more about that, about the kind of empowerment you get out of sharing your story and what that feels like for you.
So it's again, it's a situation I never thought I would be in. I never thought I would be sick with an incurable disease and be sharing my story. And I started my blog, A Life Full of Grace and Mito, like 2 years ago, and I had started it just to kind of share my story because no one really knew what mitochondrial disease was, or like what we go through. And it was actually like very liberating to like put out there, like, this is what we go through. And there was a great response with that. And it really kind of, made me want to share my story more. And it's really a unique situation to be in again, because I'm the story, you get to put a face with it. But, I think it's definitely a positive thing to put my story out there.
We agree too. We're so grateful that you do. We know it takes courage to do that too. It's not for everyone, and unfortunately for so many of our mito patients, where that journey is long and arduous, and there's bumps in the road. And as you know this better than anyone else, Grace, there's days where you're feeling really good, and then there's a crash. It's a completely different day. And boy, the way you would describe your story might be different day to day. So we're grateful for the courage that it takes to do that. Something I want to kind of ask all of you, and Tom, maybe I'll kick it off with you. As charities have to get more creative in fundraising, we talked a little bit about this today, but we're an organization that's 25 years old, relatively young, but we're constantly on our toes of finding kind of the next thing, the next path to go down, and finding more creative ways to fundraise, to bring awareness. Just some general advice from all of you on how to stay nimble, how to stay agile, how to continue to create great content. Tom, some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, in terms of, I think for charities as well, like you're pulling from the goal is not only just fundraising, but you're talking about awareness, but it's also building your own audience, right? Because then that increases the potential ability to fundraise even more, because if you are, if I'm selling Girl Scout cookies, right, and I'm just going to like the same neighborhood and I'm just selling like that entire time, eventually, that's going to dry up, or, I'm going to hit kind of a plateau. So I think it's kind of, and this doesn't sound like the greatest, but like it's kind of providing incentives to do so. So I know you were mentioning, obviously we couldn't do it last year, but like golf outings and like these things where like people can come together. I find that if you provide a little bit of an incentive, besides like the good deeds and good works and moral value that comes with it, I find that goes like a long way. And like I said, like right now I'm running another fundraiser as we speak. And I'm giving away an Aaron Rodgers signed jersey, right? Yeah. Like that's like a big ticket item kind of thing. But, people are happy to do it just for the chance to do it. But at the same time, there is that like, hey, like we get to do this.
Right.
The fact that we raised over $11,000 for you guys, like that's something awesome. And like the entire community is super duper proud of. So I think it's a matter of just like continuously spreading that awareness and building that audience. And then, it's just kind of that ripple effect. And, somebody tells somebody else and somebody tells somebody else. And eventually, you get kind of to be able to pool your resources.
Yeah, I think it's a really great point when I think about, looking at those daily gift reports of essentially, Tom, I don't have any stats on me, but they're pretty much all new donors, right, to our organization. And sure, in these kind of situations where it's very incentive based and it's a very unique, although pretty big community by way of Tom's show, no, not all those folks come back to us. But what I think is really exciting, not from just a continue to fundraise standpoint, we're not really looking at it that way. What I'm hopeful for is that someone we brought into our universe who did end up needing our service, or they hear from their nephew needs it. And Tanya, we hear those stories all the time.
Right. Yeah. And even some of Tom's posts and on your Twitter page, things like that. Like I was just reading and seeing people commenting saying that they have mitochondrial disease or their aunts or they're connected with UMDF or they wanted to connect with UMDF because they saw your fundraiser, and things like those people we may not have ever connected with.
And now we've got a new reason to connect with them. And whether it was an incentive or not, the fact that hopefully we can get great information to folks who need it. Just another way to kind of acquire eyes on screens. That's what we're looking for. That's how Tom gets to his 200,000 subscribers, and Sam builds her channel, and Grace garners attention on her blog. It's all about eyes on screens and developing out that content. Sam, some of your thoughts on that? Like, how do we stay? So we talked a lot about nerds today. How do we stay cool too? I know the nerds are cool too, but how do we stay cool? How do we stay fresh?
That's a great question. I mean, you mentioned Girl Scout cookies. Grace and I also did Girl Scouts together.
Nice.
A fun fact there. Yes. Her mom was my leader.
Poll. Number one is Samoa's. Next question.
What? The mints all the way. But, I think, with Girl Scouts, and Grace was in marching band and I was in cheerleading, like we have seen so many fundraisers come to pass. And I think now in the age of social media, you have to get creative because the selling, Avon or cookies or ice cream or whatever it is, that you're selling, is not really working in the same way that it always has been. So creating, if it is an incentive, I've seen people do charity polls where it's and it could be the Packers versus somebody else. And it's you pay, $1 to vote in that poll, and people are just happy to be a part of that community. And I think that's a word we've used a lot today. So when you're creating these fundraisers, I think tapping into communities that are already online or already in person is just a great way to create that fundraising initiative.
And garner some more attention for
the
organization and the cause. And Grace, we've seen just some of the incredible attention that your blog gets, partly because it's such kind of open content. You're really, you can pour yourself out there. But I'll ask you the same question too. Your advice to us of how we stay relevant, cool, on top of things and keeping the content flowing?
I think people like something personal. They like something that's authentic and to get to see a face and an experience. So I think that's a big part of fundraising. I know even as captain of Team Mutant, we have some real cute kids with Mito on our team. And I know I'm always putting up pictures of them and their story because people like to put a face and a story to it. And I think, if you're vulnerable and honest and share the experience, it's definitely, you get a better response with fundraising.
As a career fundraiser, cute kids and puppies always perform quite well.
Yes.
But probably more importantly than cute kids and puppies are real stories, right? The stories of impact. We just launched our impact report here for our organization that you can find on umdf.org that showcases these stories, that shows the real people behind this. Because as much as, I was talking to someone the other day, they were asking me how my job was going at UMDF. I'm celebrating my third year. And I described it in a way that I guess could be a little awkward for some. I said, I'm having a lot of fun. And it's a weird way to describe something that is so serious, where we have families who are counting on us and they're in a really tough spot. But if we're not bringing joy to this work, if we're not having fun with this, we're not going to be energized. and we're not going to be able to move the ball forward. And that's always been my commitment to the community, that I'm going to bring joy to this work, so you all feel that as well too. And that's what I'm feeling from all of you today, just from having these conversations and getting to know you over the past couple months. Let me just say, we're really grateful for the time that you put into this. And even in your mind, if it's not that big of a deal, and sure, it was a couple hours, a little departure from what you did, a little bit of work, just know that it's really meaningful to us in our community. So I do want to make sure that you all know that. I do want to get to kind of bring our conversation into a close here. We call this the Powerhouse Podcast because, we see our community of supporters as powerhouses moving this forward, and they come in many different forms. As I was sharing in our pre-call here, this podcast has had world-class researchers, it's had astronauts, patient families, teens who are spending their time moving our mission forward, and fundraisers like yourselves. And I'm always just curious, just to get a little more personal about the powerhouses in your lives. Like, what influences you to do good? And Tom, I'm going to go back to you first, if you're willing to share kind of the powerhouses in your world.
Yeah, no, I think, so I just recently, like a month ago, have now departed from teaching, but the same amount of time that I've done the podcast, I was a high school social studies teacher. And so, I mean, the thing is, while I obviously had a classroom presence and then it grew into an online presence, kind of keeping that same like moral compass and like trying to be a role model at the same time and like encouraging people to do good. I mean, like that's what it's all about, right? I mean, like you're trying to empower people, from all different walks of life when you're in the classroom, whether it's on an individualistic level or it's a class-wide level. And I think that it's just a matter of now translating that into online, which honestly, I think translates really well. I mean, if you kind of, as was said before, like if you're open and vulnerable and authentic and genuine, I think people really gravitate towards that. So I think it's just that overwhelming need for myself, honestly, that kind of like intrinsic motivation to kind of use whatever platform I have, whether it's in standing in front of 30 kids and trying to teach them about AP Euro, or whether it's, in front of 25,000 people on an NFC Championship stream. I think it's just kind of, putting those messages out there that like, the world can be a pretty tragic and grim and gloomy place, but like you also can make like your little corner better and brighter. And I think like, if you kind of put that message out there and kind of have people be their own advocates to try and make it a little bit better, then, it makes things a little bit nicer.
I had a mentor tell me once, he simplified it for me, giving feels good. Yeah. Really before what he said, like you just said, the world's kind of a cruddy place, right? But giving feels good. And it's so great to hear that part of your influence has been just your exposure to malleable minds who you saw your own commitment of having to make sure that the kids you were teaching knew that giving is good, feels good, and it's to do the right thing. Sam, your thoughts on this? Like, what are some of the powerhouses and influences in your life? Who inspires you?
So, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I was raised Catholic, so I have a lot of Catholic guilt. But other than that, but also I think, so speaking about being a Girl Scout, one of like the guiding factors, which is like the last line of the Girl Scout law, is like to make the world a better place. And I think that like I have really like tried to live that. And I mean, also I have a very like supportive family who makes me want to be better and do better. I started a business because I wanted to leave a legacy, right? I wanted to make the world a better place. So, leave something for generations to come, maybe. But I think that kind of like notion of, you don't have to, I think there's like a YouTuber who says like, you don't have to do all of the good in the world, but the world needs like the good that you can do. I think that's a really great like notion that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be giving away all of your money or all of your time, but any good that you can do is going to make the world that much better.
Great point. Grace, we've talked so much about you as an inspiration, but I want to hear from you. What inspires you? Who are some of the powerhouses in your life?
Definitely the Mito community. And I was raised, again, lifelong Girl Scout. So, doing good was always something that was really, a big priority in my life. And I was misdiagnosed. Was sick for a long time and I was misdiagnosed. And when I was diagnosed with mitochondrial disease, I had never heard of it. I was like, what the heck is this disease? It must be rare. I've never heard of it. And I felt very lost. And the mito community was just really amazing. And that something like the UMDF really has this strong community. And I got involved. I went to my first conference. I met these people and they really helped like lift me up and inspire me. And, you know, they really helped me in my low points. And it kind of made me realize that like there's so much good that can be done by putting out my story and to help people in the way that these people had helped me.
Well, I hope it's clear to all of you just how much you all have inspired us. I think you've all channeled your inner Girl Scout and making the world a better place. Certainly it continues to keep us inspired. And I just, again, think about an organization like ours. We count on people like you who are going to be creative, who even just take, again, utilizing your platforms for good. And I want to make sure that's the message that we get across today to our listeners, to our community, that there's people like you out there who are doing this. It's an opportunity for, as you mentioned, Sam, you don't have to do it all, right? Doing your piece to move forward and knowing that we're impacting real families, real patients like Grace who are helping us really move this forward. So thank you all for joining us today. Although I would be a terrible host if I didn't give you all the chance to remind us where to find you online as well too. So see, I'm learning, Tanya, like again, my YouTube kids, my kids are like trying to subscribe to things that can't be subscribed. So I'm learning from them, but let's get some plugs in here. Where can we find you guys on? Grace, where can we find you online?
So my blog is A Life Full of Grace and Mito. It's graceandmito.com, and you can find me on Facebook under the name of my blog and on Instagram as well.
All right, Sam, where can we see the good work you're doing?
You can find me on youtube.com/lifeofinsamity, or if you're looking, I know I post a lot of Grace's content as well over on the We See channel, which is We See Productions, and that's on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Awesome. And Tom, I'm not going to let him get away with it. He mentioned Wildflower earlier. Wildflower has not joined us today, but you can find Wildflower and Tom. Where can we find you, Tom?
Yeah, if you just type in Tom Grassi on YouTube, you'll find my face.
That's what happens when you have 200,000 subscribers.
You'll find whether you want it or not. If for some reason you want to hear this Muppet voice a little bit more, you can go and do that. But yeah, it's Tom Grassi. It's everywhere.
I can't think of a better way to wrap up our conversation today, guys. Thanks again so much for joining us on the Powerhouse. We're grateful for your support.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Well, Tanya, I have to say, I came into this meeting, this meeting. This is just how I am now, right? Everything's a meeting for me. I came in today caffeinated, energized, ready to kick down doors. Like now I'm like flip my table. Like we have to be doing more. We have to get more creative. We'd be thinking about the note I wrote down is let's get those subscribers up. Let's get those followers up. And this isn't just a kind of goofy mantra of advancing a YouTube channel. This is about getting more people aware of what we do.
Correct. Yeah. So it's getting, as you always say, more eyes on screen. So it's more people that are hearing about mitochondrial disease, about UMDF, about the great work that we're doing, the exciting projects that we have coming up that are going to support our entire mitochondrial community. And the more people that we have seeing it, the greater things that we can do.
There's just too much important information to share. Speaking of great projects coming up, we've been talking the last couple months. We have our MitoShare patient registry, which is going to be launching here real soon, a new genetic testing project. Of course, all the great content that came out of our Mitochondrial Medicine 2021 virtual event. You'll be able to find that on our MitoU educational hub. And we're not stopping. We're going to continue to provide this great content, get more eyes on screens, and find good friends like our guests today, Tom, Grace, and Sam. Until next time, please make sure you do go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Instagram as well. Thanks, everyone.